Cool. Awesome. Well, hi everyone and welcome to, goodness me, October. October's Edu Nerds, otherwise known as the Educators Book Club. These are our three friendly faces. And how are you, Mark and Stephen?
Very good, thank you.
Good.
I promise they talk more as we go through the hour. Yeah, so this is the Educators Book Club. It's just a very relaxed, casual chat for the next hour on the books the three of us have been reading, but also on what you've been reading. It is recorded. Be aware it's being recorded. It will be up on YouTube after this. If you would like to share what you're reading, we love hearing what you're all reading and what you're thinking about and hearing what you agree and you disagree with. So put your hand up when it's time and use the chat and tell us what you think and tell us if you think our taste in books is terrible or amazing or wonderful or inspiring or whatever. We'll just use some emojis to tell us what's going on. Have I forgotten anything?
No, you got it. Nailed it.
Amazing. Love hearts. Well, Mark, you usually kick us off, but before you do, I have to say, what a nice
A
background.
lovely background, isn't it? So yes, this is in Cool in Sydney, and there's a little library in the background. This is a cafe right on the beach. So but Lottie and I had some quality time just a few weeks ago in this cafe. So I thought I'd get to take a snap, use it as the background.
We met for the first time in person, in human.
It's about 5 years or more, even. I think.
Yes. There we go. We had a four hour edgy reading nerd jam,
It's very
multiple
pleasant.
coffees.
Hmm.
So what have you been reading, Mark?
I love that you're
So
both giggling like a new
what's
couple or something. We
what's
had some
that?
quality time at the cafe. We had plenty of coffee. Anyway,
Not your
Mark, tell us
choice,
about
not
the
your
books.
choice of language, Stephen.
Yeah, you said it, not me. I don't know.
Yeah, well, it's made my words, not
All above
yours.
board.
Thank you. I've read lots of different books, and I might just share my screen actually. One of the ones, hang on, where are we? Hang on, I've got to line this up. I'm gonna share this one first, which is something that Stephen would probably be very familiar with. Can you see that
He's
on your
back.
It's back? Oops. This was in my Audible kind of for free. I didn't have to pay extra for it, and it was in there. And I thought, oh, right, there he is. I better start listening to it. So I listened to it, and it was a follow-on from something that we chatted about last week or last month rather. But I'm quite fascinated by this person, Paulo Freire, I think it is pronounced. But yeah, some of the ideas are really quite they resonate or they're really intriguing. I like how they're kind of really big, kind of. But essentially, this concept, critical consciousness, maybe Stephen can tell us in a few minutes. You've been reading this as well, but it's basically challenges. They call it the banking model of education. Like you got the empty vessel, that kind of people know stuff, and then the students have an empty head that gets filled up. So it's challenging that idea, but on a really broad social level. And it's kind of, well, what is the purpose of education type thing? So this was really, really quite interesting. And it is kind of, I guess that one of the disadvantages of an audio book is it's difficult to take notes and look back later. Um, but that's one of the ones I've been reading. Another one I've been reading, which is most people in this room, maybe you're familiar with Tim Kitchen, um, who is one of the an educator at Adobe, and so he has recently published this book through Mammoth Learning um, about creativity. So I liked this a lot because it incorporates creativity across the whole school approach. It's not like some subjects are more creative than others. It's basically lots of really practical ideas and approaches um, and scaffolding, tips and tricks on how to incorporate creative practice into all the key learning areas. So, and then another book I read was this one, which is, as you can see, it's all about creative thinking, but it's also about critical thinking. And so this one, I think, Lottie, you've read this one as well, I think. Um,
Correct.
so I liked this one because it really has been pitched for a particular audience, which is teachers. Teachers love scaffolds. Teachers love, activities, student samples, case studies, reflection. It's really, really easy to read. Um, so I think it's almost like you can pick it up and just get ideas. Like you could literally pick out a page at random and be able to start developing some sort of critical thinking kind of a strategy or an activity, that type of thing. So I might just stop sharing, see what you reckon.
Well, what
For
do you think of Ray Airy? Because I read that one too, but I also read a couple in a row, and they're all blending rather together, Mark. So I'm
they
hoping you
are,
can tell me what particularly about that one, so I can tell
yeah.
you that I
No,
read it too.
I had noticed that there's a kind of quite of an overlap with a lot of the ideas. I did have some notes here because I was thinking, well, hang on, I've just, what was it about again? One of the things that I
Always a
liked.
sign of a good book.
Well, I've said a few times about they're really big ideas, and so one of those big ideas is about um, theory into action. And what does that look like for populations of people? So it's not even just at a school level. He's kind of writing, is exploring. It's kind of gets into, uh, I guess, even like the use of dialogue in learning and teaching as an approach. But I liked the idea of this reflection on what's happening or what you've learned, and then how are you really going to put that into action? But it is framed around, a lot of it is framed around oppression of, or maybe sort of suppression of ideas. People don't get to hear certain things, or they're kind of they have access to certain privileged information. Um, so I guess, yeah, I'm not making much sense here, am I,
Yes, you
Stephen?
are. Yes, you are. It's
You're
around the
making more
idea
sense.
that the curriculum is yeah, teaching is a political act because what you teach is it's like when, a few years ago when that textbook came out and Captain Cook was called an invader versus a colon and it was like the language that we use, the stories that we tell are changing over time. And Freya was talking about this a long time ago.
Yeah, I think that it's that notion that I'm most captivated by. It's like this isn't a new thing. It's new to me though. So I quite like it. Even though there is this overlap with some of his other books. But
Mm.
yeah, I'm kind of thinking, how might one incorporate that into the curriculum on a practical level? It would be kind of I don't know, you'd have to do some thinking and planning, I would imagine.
Maybe some thinking routines, Mark.
Maybe all the three books are blending together. That's
Speaking
right.
of thinking routines from Alice's book, the deep dive.
There it is. What did you think of this? You've read this?
Yeah, I really liked it. I yes, also read it somewhat recently in the last couple of days. It's very practical. It's she does that great thing where she uses QR codes, which
Yeah,
I
there's a
think
QR code. Ooh,
yeah, I just think that's just such a sensible thing in books to take
yeah.
readers, educators to websites, resources. The problem is, of course, if the website stops working, then your QR code doesn't work. But yeah, really practical, lots of really good examples. I mean, it's obviously aligned to the Australian curriculum. So the audience is Australia, talks about, the critical and creative thinking in a car. So that's your audience. But a little birdie did tell me that it's selling very well in the USA, and I'm not surprised because I've worked across the USA education system in some states a little bit. And the education system there, I mean, what we do over here is seen as pretty sort of dynamic and forward thinking in terms of having soft skills. And our curriculum is seen as kind of ahead of the game in a lot of places. So I'm not surprised at all that a book like this is doing very well over there. I think for a lot of educators over there, this would be quite useful and, yeah, yeah. Can't even think of the words. I'm sorry. Quite something. There
Enlightening?
Enlightening, yes. Enlightening. Yeah. Clear definitions. I mean, I think too, if you said to someone, what is creativity? What is critical thinking? I'd probably struggle to put that into words, but there's a lot of kind of clarifying and definitions of different types of those actions.
Well, see, that's without getting too meta, not, like if you have that vocabulary, then you can start to more easily communicate and collaborate. And, you kind of, so one of the key pieces value of this book that I really liked is all the kind of the words that are used in sentences. So then you can start to kind of get into this a bit of a spirit. You're not kind of like just fumbling along. It's got a structure, and as you say, it's aligned to various curriculum requirements. So then it's demystifying, I guess, is a kind of one of a key idea. Hello for those people that have just joined us.
Welcome. Going back to the free air book, I was at a conference today. It was an international students conference. And it was really interesting because I felt like this narrative of student voice, student agency, intercultural understanding and learning, and this narrative of not just seeing international students as, a cash flow. They are humans that have stories to tell and a lot to share and can really educate their peers and their teachers, and they want to do that. And yeah, there's a lot of kind of discussion around, what Freya is talking about, which is that there are unheard voices in education systems, and simply not intentionally, just through the design of the way things are. So really challenging all of that. So it was really interesting to hear that shift happening in the tertiary sector today. Which, Stephen, I thought of you. There was a great session about Indigenous voices designing, university programs. So I will share the info with you.
Exciting. That sounds good. Well, Mark, I'm thinking I read the same free area as you, and I found it a bit all over the shop, to be honest. It was kind of from memory, that was the one that had extension in it, and it had like several chapters about extension, which was never explained. And it's like extension. Let's explore extension. And you're thinking, all right, any minute now that we're going to work out what the hell that has to do with anything. But it never really did. And then occasionally, yeah, I don't know. And then it'd just be like, praxis, which is just thrown out there. And
according to my notes
career in this education researchy space, and I'm just like, I know what that is, free airy, because I've been around this sort of thing. But there was a lot of just like unexplained, and when things industrialize, blah 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 blah.
Oh, massification
again, another big thing that you're like.
I just typed that into
tell us about what that is.
No,
I won't.
I typed that into ChatGPT with the author's name, and I got a little definition. And I thought, oh, yeah, no, that's it. I remember now. I remember this whole big chunk. And so that's why it's an intriguing book. I'm finding that it's got all these really big ideas in it.
If any of our audience has read Freire, any of his books, and would like to share your thoughts, all thoughts are welcome. Let us know in the chat. You don't feel you have to, of course. Don't feel like our reading is a suggested reading list.
No.
The opposite.
Yes.
A lot of the time. But no, Mark, yeah, so I read, as per your suggestion, I read how to write a thesis,
Did
like
you?
Echo,
I
just like
didn't
you
see
told
that
me
in. Oh,
to.
there it is. I
You
missed
said I'd
that.
enjoy that in Culberland. Also, I definitely have a tab open that says how to pronounce Frieri, and I'm still not going to do it properly because we're at the end of the day,
Yeah.
we're Australian and it's our accent and
That's it.
can't do good words good. But
Did you
yeah, that
like
was
how to
good,
write a
Mark.
thesis?
Oh, it was nice. It
Oh,
was
that's
really nice.
good.
It was like, I had a whole chapter on like, now be nice to those librarians because a good librarian can really help you out. And a really bad librarian's going to ruin your day. And it's like, remember librarians. No, they still exist, but it was just, because back then, of course, that's how it worked. You'd go and you'd say, I want to read all the important journals about whatever. And they'd go and do it. And then in one chapter, he timed himself and he went, I'm going to pretend that I'm not a really famous person and I'm just going to go to the library and I'm going to say, don't help me. I'm going to do a literature review. And then he said, and it took me 6 minutes and I had all of the journals and books in front of me. And you could do that too
Well,
if you ask.
librarians are still doing that though. It's just they've moved into the electronic age, and
Oh,
they offer little kind of like resources to guide students and other candidates, researchers.
Mhm.
So there's heaps. Yeah, they've kind of like the great unsung legends of research, the librarians, I
Mm.
believe. So that's good that you enjoyed that book.
Well, yeah, my favorite suggestion was definitely he said, uh, basically like, you must write an original contribution. But if you can't, just copy someone's. But copy someone who's not in your area and no one will find out. And I was like, hmm, that sounds like a tempting idea, so you like catch the train, you travel over to a different area with someone else's thesis and then you rewrite it out in a different region and then you say, ta-da! I wrote this. And I thought that's quite a nice earthy suggestion which I will now do. What could go wrong? Yeah.
So
But
what
no,
else?
very good, very very powerful stuff.
What else do you have for us?
Um, well, I realized what happens. Spotify gives you like 10 listening hours a month, and then they cut you off unless you pay more money. And it's like $16 a month to get 10 extra hours. And I realized that that's probably cheaper than buying an audiobook. So originally, this Danny Wallace book sat there unread because I was waiting for my month to renew. And then I realized that $16 is much cheaper. So anyway, then I read that. I read Man Made, not the book copy that you lent to me, Mark, but I listened to it. It was good.
Oh, very good.
I mean, I've done all your required reading.
I
Thank you,
do.
sir.
Yes, I'm quite impressed. You've got quite a few suggested readings.
Yeah, no, Man Made was really good. I enjoyed it. It was fairly a little bit all over the shop in terms of topics. Like it hit on a lot of things that weren't. I maybe I misread it, but I assumed it would be like an AI book, but it was all sorts of things. Talked about technology facilitated assault, which is a new thing that's happening, and talked about that. And then right at the end, just became a feminist manifesto, which is always a good thing, but a surprising twist at the end. It was all very journalistic, and this has happened, and this is happening, and this expert says this. And then at the end, it was like feminism, which is always good fun. I read this book by Charlemagne the God, who apparently is like has a podcast called something, but he's a recognizable face to the youth, and he was surprisingly insightful, which was good.
Why does small talk suck?
He says it's ruining America, Mark, and
Yeah, but why?
Why?
Why is that?
I
Come
don't know.
on.
It wasn't. Look, he's not exactly a philosopher, Mark. Let's put it like that. But he is an entertaining person. He said small talk is killing society because we don't talk about the big issues, you see?
That's right. Like on
Mm.
this little event that we're holding now.
Well, we are
No
circling
small
the
talk
drain of
here.
small talk, aren't we? There's no big talk.
There was a girl on the train last week who was reading a book called The Courage to be Disliked. I thought,
I've read that.
have
Yeah, I've
you?
read.
What was
Yeah, I
it
borrowed it from the
like?
library.
I
Yeah, it
thought,
was.
oof,
Did
what's
you look
going
at it
on
and
there?
go? And then she said, "That's fine. I'm prepared for that. Thank you."
Oh, well, yeah, yeah.
And so,
Oh,
Mark, if you started reading it, that's exciting.
yeah, I thought, what a strange title for a book. And I thought, yeah,
Yeah.
someone's written that. They've conceived it. And I remember it liking it as a book, getting into someone else's head as their kind of like a, their thoughts on. I think it was yeah, it was a few years ago. It was during COVID, I think, or maybe a couple of years ago.
What was the point of the author? Is it to say just, just be who you are and don't worry if people don't like you? Or was it, just don't be scared to kind of make the hard calls? Or
It was
I could find
free.
all these answers by Googling in 1 second, but I'm going to ask you.
Well, read it, Lottie. It's on your
Read it.
required reading now.
It was about your own conviction,
Mm,
if you kind of knowing what you're about and then don't get distracted kind of chasing Instagram likes or that type of territory, just
mm,
be happy with what you're about. Um, so it was like a kind of self-help book, philosophical, new age almost kind of, it was drawing upon various sources. And I thought, oh yeah, I think it's a good title because it's like
mm.
about a mindset. I knew Carol Dweck would come into this at some point.
All roads lead back to Carol Dweck, according to Mark Parry. That's what we came to at the end of our 4 hours in Sydney.
Yes.
Really? Well,
So what
So tell
else?
us, is there a page 2, Stephen?
oh yeah, no, of course. You know me.
A bit of
Um,
Indigenous poetry I've noticed in some of those
Mm.
books.
yeah, but to me they're workbooks. Someone told me The Day of the Triffids. I had to read that. Can't remember who it was.
Oh
Maybe
my God.
maybe Carolyn,
Oh,
Maybe
maybe
Carolyn
someone.
after Fahrenheit.
Read
That one's
I
next.
read
That's on there too.
I read all of John Wyndham's books
Hmm.
in as a part of the 100 books I read in year 10. That's
wow.
going back a very long way. And that's when I read The Day of the Triffids as well as his other,
The Chrysalids is another
all
one
of them.
of his.
Mm.
So is it famous? Why have I never heard of it? I was like, oh, this is cute, but honestly,
They're I guess dystopic is the
Yeah.
Mm.
closest thing. It's a sci-fi. Um yeah, just I read it in year 10 without any idea of a higher value than just a good story.
hmm. Yeah, and it was like very sort of radio play, very
Mm,
the famous radio play. The
mm.
aliens come,
War of the
Mm.
Worlds.
Or
War of
the
the
War of the
Worlds.
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 I mean, we're
Yeah.
talking 60s here.
Mm.
Mm. Yeah, it was wonderful because it's like at one point, what the main character becomes blind, and you're like,
Mm,
great, we're blind too because we're just reading. So there's a lot of like,
mm,
yeah, very few people can see, so all the blind people have to like put their hands on each other's shoulders and connect up to like a person that can see at the front, and it's all very like a big, caterpillar. Oh, it's exciting.
you
Good
can pick
fun.
up the courage to be disliked in eBay for $6.
There you go.
Well, someone disliked it, I guess. Enough to. All right, and then I'll stop talking because it's far too long.
But
And then I read Fahrenheit 451.
oh, you did?
Ah,
What did you
Excellent.
think?
It was real good. I could see how
Mm.
most
excellent.
Excellent.
people would like it.
I'm gonna
You're kind of like, yeah.
I'm gonna
I'm a
react.
reader of books too, not like an automaton who reads on the screen. And it's like a book for people that like books, I guess.
It's a book
Mm.
for teachers of English who like to have a whole range of different fiction books to share with their students.
Mm. I could see, yeah, could see a lot of layers of irony of, Fahrenheit 451 is the set text, but the kids aren't reading it because they're looking at their phones under the table. And it's like,
Mm,
you read it, you'd understand this is very ironic, and you're a schmuck, and anyway, and then To Stir with Love is like a kid's book, but we went to the book launch. It was real cute. And
Mm.
last one, I taught some pre-service teachers, two female students, and they were saying that they were watching The Summer I Turned Pretty, and then they said, "Oh, but you can't read that because that's a girl's book." And I
Mm.
was like, "Well, guess what? I'm going to read it because I'm a contrarian by nature." And it was underwhelming for me, to be honest. I've never especially wanted to be a 14-year-old girl, but I read a whole book about being 14 and, you know, getting my first breasts and those sort of things and thinking, yeah, this is a bit silly, really.
But I think that deserves special applause to put
Yeah.
oneself through that. I think that
Yeah.
takes courage.
Apparently it's like a Netflix series or something now,
Yeah.
but you know, it's all very like, yes, it's like we are the white people in the Hamptons and we eat. There's never a care in the world. We don't need summer jobs. We don't need jobs at all, and
Mm,
we all just want boyfriends or something.
mm.
But it's all very straightforward. Apparently, in the
Terrifying.
TV show, it's like you got to choose between team this male and team this other male. But in the book, one of those teams is an idiot that is very clearly not popular at all, and the other one is hot and brooding and everything else. And it's like, so obviously they've added an additional plot line.
How do you decide?
Well, exactly. In the book, it's like, well, you pick the only one that's good, but obviously in the TV show, you have to make some
Well,
sort
like
of choice.
this is not going to be riveting viewing. We need,
Need to include some,
two archetypal attractive men to really, draw in the viewers.
yeah, no, it was probably the most linear book I've sort of read. It's, on page 2, it's like, this guy's hot. And then it's the whole book, it's like, well, I'm pretty sure I know what's going to happen. And then it did happen at the end. What?
Well, now you're going to have to watch the Netflix and see if it did happen with the same guy. There you go.
Exactly
Report
right.
back next month. That's your homework.
That's it. Well, we want to hear from other people. Melissa says, when the hell do you read this many books? Well,
Mm.
it's my job to read books mostly, and and audiobooks on double speed. Who wants to talk to us? Militia, talk to us.
Come and tell us what you're reading.
I'll have to move out of the way. I have actually read a few things,
Yay!
Yeah.
like one and a half. So I read, after we spoke last time, I read the Head and Heart that Lottie recommended. I think it was. Was
Yep.
it you, Lottie?
a few people.
The Power of
Matt's,
Giving Away Power was my
Oh, that was your
recommendation.
one.
Someone
I
else
haven't-
was Head and Heart.
Yeah, I haven't gotten to that one yet. And I'm about halfway through Creativity Inc.
Mm-hmm.
So that's where I'm at the moment.
What was Head and Heart like?
It was really good and a really easy read. And I think just a lot of the descriptions of kind of really practical things that I could take straight back to my team and talk about different types of meetings and different types of, the different biases and just a bunch of different things that kind of resonated with me and
Oh, because you did have a pretty hefty pile for your holiday. Noted.
Yeah. So I'm one and a half through.
Excellent.
One and a half.
And now it's term 4. Christmas will be when you read them.
Absolutely. Definitely.
Excellent.
Well, you're very on theme with the whole Creativity Inc. I mean, there's been a lot of,
What are the unseen forces that stand in our way with creativity?
I think one of the big things that, from what I'm getting so far, is around intentionality when it comes to creating those the ways that they've gone at talks about Pixar and when they come together to really push each other. It's really intentionally trying to uncover those to challenge each other. Like they're actually intentionally creating these spaces where they're pushing and challenging, and the creativity comes from that, and comes from having people in the team who feel comfortable to speak up and to challenge others. So yeah, it's just I like the way it kind of follows Ed's experience throughout the different companies, and it's easy to follow because obviously we've seen all of the movies, and it just gives you a bit of a kind of backstage look at how they got there. But I think one of those unseen forces is really around people not being scared to challenge each other.
Mm.
Yeah, I like that as an idea because it's sort of sometimes people hold back or they think that's like a negative thing, but you're saying this book is really kind of showcasing the positives of that type of practice.
Yeah. And being really clear in setting the expectations of that's actually the core reason that we are together in this room, is to actually have these conversations. And so it's been pretty positive. It kind of inspired me to go back and get a couple of my team together and do the same thing and really look at what we're doing super critically and just carve out this half hour each fortnight where we're really digging deep and unpacking things in a safe place, where it's always about, they talk about it always being about the project. It's never personal.
Mm.
So
It sounds a bit like, I mean, this is a much more sort of superficial level, but the brainstorm ideas, and there's no such thing as a bad idea. And like the generative thinking, like the more ideas you create, the kind of, everything's welcome. But then after that, of course, you come, from your convergent to your divergent thinking, you come back and you bring it all back together. But yeah, I mean, it's kind of like so many educators, we do this with our groups of students and in classrooms and stuff. But yeah, students have to feel really safe to even kind of make suggestions, even though I think sometimes these activities get thrown at kids and it's like, oh, there's no such thing as a bad idea, and of course, somebody says something and everyone's like, so, well, that maybe that safe space wasn't fully kind of set up, but this is, of course, a completely different context in the workforce. So the relationships would be deeper, I imagine.
But heaps of connections to head and heart as well. Even as I look through my notes, talking about creativity, but also curiosity. About the longer we do the same thing, the less likely we are to be curious about it. So how do you make sure that you're not always doing the same thing? That we're actually making wiser choices and trying new things.
Cool. Yeah.
But yeah, Head and Heart was great. I feel like it's one of those books where I've just got kind of pages of cool quotes, like how we grow family trees of leaders, little things like that. That I thought just nicely put. And Creativity Inc. is just a cool read for a number of different reasons. Just interesting to hear about how some of the movies that have been so successful, just how crap they were to start with.
Right.
And some of them still. Yeah.
I was going to say, yeah, it's all relative, right?
And we're talking about Toy Story, Stephen. So we're not.
They made 3 of them, so they can't all be good.
They're all excellent. Agree to disagree.
My kids aren't old enough.
Yes.
Stephen, they're coming. You've got little children.
Well, exactly. Yeah, well, that's what I mean. I honestly haven't seen.
Yeah,
it's coming.
Occasionally, they were displayed in my class. During very key times of the year, like now. But anyway, no, they're coming. That's true. My appreciation for them will only grow. I'm sure.
Yeah.
To be like, compared to some of the others, this ain't too bad. Maybe. Beck, you're already here. You've got a puppy.
Yeah, sorry, this is Archer.
Wow.
Yeah.
Boy.
Archer. Yeah, he's
What have you been
32
reading, Archer?
kgs and he'll sit on top of me. Yeah. This is what I'm reading at the moment. Oh, I've just finished it actually. Cultivating Curiosity.
Mm-hmm.
And it's by
Can you hold it up again, please? There we go. Excellent.
Oh, who's
Reimagined.
It's by Doreen Geary Nelson, and she runs a design thinking course, I want to say out of one of the Californian universities. And it's got me inspired, but I know that I would never be able to pull off what she does. But she it started when she was teaching in a primary school, and she got the kids to build a city, and they had to build houses that had never been seen before. And so they were given criteria about what had to be included and stuff. And so they put it all together, and she basically used this to teach the entire year. And so they had to form like local government, and they had to negotiate things and work out how things would work. And then she would introduce new problems, and so they would have to problem solve through it. Phenomenal. Like, it's just be such an amazing opportunity to have a go at doing something like this. Melissa and I, obviously, we're both at the same school, and we're an MYP school, which is the middle years program for the International Baccalaureate. And as part of the course, we have to do in year 7, 8, and 9 an interdisciplinary unit. If you could do something like this, where you could have a room and the kids come in, they build a town. Or there was one example where a teacher had taught ecosystems through it, and so the kids all had to create these organisms that had never been seen before, and they would build a habitat for them. And then they came in one time, and a disease had come through and taken out some of them, and so then they learn about natural selection and all this sort of stuff. It was just phenomenal. Totally inspired. But I know I can't do it.
But is this a type of thing that a little group of teachers would be best to kind of tackle? Or, like, it sounds like it's too much for one teacher to kind
in all of these, they were all single teachers that did it.
Oh,
Like,
okay.
and so she and all the way through to year 12. Like, year 12 biology was one of the subjects that a teacher used it. And I think probably more in primary schools, where you are in the one classroom. I mean, secondary school, I teach my year 8 class, I'm in 3 different classrooms. So to do something like this is just not feasible, to be able to move it around. But just the ability to get kids to be creative and work collaboratively and develop all these skills and this interdisciplinary component of it. It was really exciting. It was like, wow, this would be awesome to go and see.
Sounds like an open curriculum approach, right? She had a huge amount of flexibility.
Yeah. And so, met all the standards and all that sort of stuff, and went through about how to design your curriculum using this, and how they would have like a design session, and then they would have targeted lessons and all that sort of stuff. And a lot of people that were, this is not going to work, would then come and do a summer program, and then would end up enrolling in the master's course that she runs. It was really cool.
Can you explain? I've got it open. Can you explain to us the methodology of the 6.5 steps of backward thinking trademark? The short and pithy, Well,
basically, yeah. It's very much like, where do you want to end up, and then you just work backwards. It's backwards by design.
Yeah, sounds like
trademark. It's trademarked though.
Yeah, it is trademarked. But this is America, remember, Steve? They do some weird things. At first when I saw that, I was like, ugh. But by the end of it, I was like, this would be awesome. Would love to go and see it. And especially they were using it with kids with a lot of learning needs and things like that, and how successful it was for those students and stuff. Yeah.
Cool.
That's good. I'll have to go cop it.
Yeah.
Add it to the reading list. I'll add it to the Wakelet. There you go.
Very good.
Add it to the Wakelet, sure.
Does anyone else want to tell us what they've been reading?
Come and tell us. I want to throw a quick book in there while I can. It's not an education book.
Liz, what are you?
Hey.
And Elise is one of our new only just as I'm
Hello.
joined us.
Welcome.
Lottie, I feel like I've just fully
No,
interrupted
you
you
go,
though.
you go. I'm going to share something
Okay.
after.
All right. So I'm reading The Meditation Mindfulness Edge, Becoming a Sharper, Healthier, and Happier Teacher by Lisa Klein.
I looked that one up from the link on LinkedIn.
Yeah. So it was only released this year. I got sucked into one of those book deals and bought a few, but I'm really enjoying this one. I've just made some notes though. Really easy reading. Like you can just read it in bed, or wherever you like to read. It's fine. So there's like a mixture of stories, exercises, and it's like really evidence-based, which I love when they can bring like evidence into mindfulness, because I think mindfulness is so powerful in the classroom. And there's a lot of sort of like misinterpretations of what it actually is. So she starts by breaking it down as being like present moment awareness and just being with your thoughts. So I think as teachers, we tend to have a lot of incessant chatter going on in our brains at the time, try to differentiate and do a billion different things. I just sort of break it down in my notes into like the why and the how. So that's the what. There's like a couple of chapters with the research of what it actually is, which is really well worth reading. The why is to do with like teacher attrition, teacher burnout, and job satisfaction. And the teacher being the most significant factor in the classroom. There's a really good quote in there. I might read it at the end. And then I guess why it's really important, like what she was talking about, is that you're being more calm and aware, less reactive, and more focused and sharp. So then that leads to sort of like those softer skill type things of being more patient, kind, and compassionate overall over time. And then in the last chapter, she's just got a bunch of different things. Like there's a smiling exercise and like a feeling box where you go through and try and work out what the different things are that kids would just see as a game, but you'd obviously be teaching them what mindfulness is at the same time. So there's really good exercises at the back, but also teach them of what it is and the how and the why of mindfulness. But something that really stood out for me was talking about like trauma-informed practice, and that you don't force mindfulness on people. I know at a school I was working at, they tried to force us to do an X amount of mindfulness before every staff meeting. That sort of like wore off pretty quickly. Go? Not well. There was a lot of pushback from a lot of the teachers, because they never explained to us the how and the why, and they never gave us any ownership over it. Like we never had a choice. It was just, you're going to do like at least 5 minutes of mindfulness before each staff meeting. But yeah,
I was going to say, it reminds
really
me of our compulsory wellbeing sessions after school that I had to attend at a previous school.
Yeah.
You will be well, Rebecca.
Yeah. And it's just, you spent the whole time going, oh my God, where am I going to find this hour from at home? Like, I do not.
This is stressing me out so much.
So yes. Yeah. So sorry for interrupting, but it was just like, oh my God, why do schools keep doing this?
Yeah. Can I read a little quote out of it?
Yeah.
It's actually not a quote from the author. She's quoting somebody else, but I really liked it. You've probably heard it before, but I've come to a frightening conclusion. I'm the decisive element in the classroom. It's my personal approach that creates the climate. It's my daily mood that makes the weather. As a teacher, I possess tremendous power to make a child's life miserable or joyous. I can be a tool of torture or an instrument of inspiration. I can humiliate or humor, hurt or heal. In all situations, it's my response that decides whether a crisis will be escalated or de-escalated, and a child humanized or dehumanized. I really like that. Like that sort of sums up what the book is about and why it's important for me. And unfortunately, it doesn't come until chapter 2, but that's just the sort of thing that I thought might inspire people a little bit to want to read it, because it's a really good book. And you can read it, you can get an ebook of it as well.
How are you going to use it in your teaching, in your work, Annalise?
I'm in a bit of a funny situation. I'm between jobs at the moment. So I'm just going to use it in my personal life to get my spark back a little bit and recover a little bit from that teacher burnout, to be perfectly honest.
Can you take us through the smile routine? What's that? That's what I was saying. Like, don't just read us a quote. Take us through a routine, Annalise.
Oh, sorry.
Maybe that's unreasonable of me to ask, but hey.
No, so you've probably heard before that if you smile at somebody, like it affects you, you can actually smile yourself more into happiness. It sounds weird, but there's actually like some research behind it. So just saying to the kids, like smiling does something to your body. Take a second and smile right now. I mean, you can do it if you want to do it, like literally do it right now. Really smile. If you're not happy doing this, you might need to think about a really happy moment that you've actually had, or think about someone you really love. Either way, right now, break out into a big smile. Try it, smile. Hold it for a moment. I mean, ideally, people wouldn't be looking at each other and having to do it. Like you could do it by yourself, like to yourself type thing in a classroom. I don't think that you'd be making the kids look at each other. Although maybe that would make them actually do it. If they had to look at each other, they might actually be more likely to smile. And then you notice the sensations in your body. Maybe you begin to feel a release of stress, maybe a subtle surge of happiness. When you smile, you're connecting the mind and the body, and the simple act of smiling can generate the releasing of feel-good endorphins. If you feel inauthentic about it, just keep doing it. It's a quick exercise you can do anywhere. It will feel awkward, but if you find it awkward, you definitely need to work on smiling more. Eventually, it'll become more natural and it'll become more genuine. It's one of the best ways to shift your energy and the energy of your environment.
Lovely. Thank you. That was great.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Awesome. We'll add that to the Wakelet. Thanks, Annalise. The book reminds me, I'm totally blanking on this book, Mark. We both read it the same month, a few months ago, and Stephen commented on the Tibetan bells.
Now that
It
rings
was
a
about
bell.
That rings a
mindfulness.
bell. Good.
It was about mindfulness. It'll come to me, Annalise, and I'll share it in the chat. I will look it up in the Wakelet anyway. The bells.
Oh yeah, Annalise, Julie's just joined us. She says, "What was that book?"
Tell us. Yes, type it in the chat.
So we have
Type it in.
about just over 10 minutes left. So if someone else wants to pop up and tell us
Come on up.
something that's from your perspective.
I'm going to jump in really quickly because I want to just share this book because we were talking about Fahrenheit. What was it?
451.
451. So has anyone heard of this book, The Sisterhood?
No.
Stephen? No? All right. It is 1984 through the female gaze. And I
like the
Stephen's thinking
byline.
face. It was priceless.
Big Brother is watching.
Me yet, but keep going. What do you mean?
And I can say it was quite average.
The female gaze. What does that
Quite
mean?
average.
It was quite average. I started reading it and I was like, hang on, they've just stolen everything from 1984. How are they getting away with this? And then I got to the end of the book and I was like, they've really stolen everything from it, like all the scenes. And then at the end it says, we got permission to like redo this book from the female gaze.
Like
sort of a little bit like Handmaid's Tale versus 1984. Anyway, terribly average. I just also want to do a quick shout out to the series, which I don't know if anyone's into historical fiction, but there are 3 books in the series, and these are based on historical events that happened in America in like 1873, where one of the Cheyenne chief agreed with the Americans governor to trade 1,000 white women for 1,000 horses to try and kind of create peace through interracial marriages. So quite extraordinary story. So these 1,000 women were pulled out of prisons and asylums. Some signed up. Some were escaped slaves, and they married North American Indians. And then, of course, the US, as we all know very sadly from the history, the US government came in and massacred the white woman along with the Indians and pretended that the program never existed. So it's a piece of history I'd never heard about. And it's absolutely extraordinary that, it happened at all. And yeah, the author's done some really amazing research into the stories of these specific woman who ended up in this crazy kind of situation. So there you go.
Can you explain 1984 but from the female gaze?
Go back to that one.
Yeah, I mean the other one also sounds a bit confusing, but so the last one was a true story?
Yes. So it's a series of books based on true events, and the author's recreated them. It's all historically accurate, but he's sort of retold it through imaginary diary entries of 3 or 4 different characters.
Okay. All right. So 1984 from the female gaze. What does that mean?
So Julia, Julia, who's Big Brother, and anyway, share my screen. I'm getting a note. Share screen. Anyway, Julia is actually Big Brother's I'm going to give a spoiler. I'm assuming no one's going to read it. She's actually the real Big Brother's daughter. She's the daughter. That's the spoiler.
Wow.
Yeah, yeah, real twist, a real turn. And yeah.
Julie's
Anyway.
impressed if no one else.
Anyway, that's that. And then it's like she's with a group of women like fighting the Big Brother system, but if they ever find out who she really is, she'll be rejected. Anyway, I like dystopic, so I just was kind of, oh, this looks interesting, and then I was like,
These are long. That's a hefty investment. 464 pages just for an ordinary kind of review. But
oh, it was good enough to. I was actually quite intrigued by how they'd ripped off 1984, to be perfectly honest, and I was like, what? They've stolen that too. They've stolen that too. I have to keep reading. How are they going to justify this? I should have just read about the book before I started and realized that that's what it was. And then I probably wouldn't have read the book anyway.
It was a bit of like, surely they didn't. Surely they won't. And you just keep going. Yeah. Surely they're not going to steal it. Yep,
you know the scene where at the end where she's in the room with the glass and Big Brother are watching? It's like all from her perspective. It's like the exact scene. I don't know if anyone knows that scene from 1984. Give me a thumbs up. Yes, we're getting some nods. Yes.
Not from memory. So it's kind of like a movie reboot where they've like gender switch the characters, and it's like, but it's the same. But no.
Yes, it's the same story. It's the same outcome. Well, it's actually not the same outcome, but
well, it's a very contemporary approach to sort of literature or narrative, sort of, that kind of reboot or the reimagining of, the same characters or the same environment, same universe, and then they have a 8-part Netflix series, or that sort of like the Handmaid's Tale in a way. Kind of, they just sort of make it up as they go along.
Yes,
they run out of material. They're like, crap, let's keep going. Julie, talk to us. We got time?
Yes, come on.
Okay. We must be the exact same age, Julie, because I read 1984 in 1984.
Once
in year 11.
Yeah, I'm in Brisbane now. Hang on, can you hear me? Yes. Okay. I'm in Brisbane now, but I'm from Sydney originally. So yeah, I read 1984 in 1984. So yeah, I didn't think about it that much at the time, but I thought about it a lot since. Okay, so a book I've been reading, I'll try not to take too long, is I'm doing my master's in education in inclusive education. And part-time. And so I've been doing a little bit on positive psychology. So I'll read it out to you. This is just it, but I'll tell you what it is because you can't see that. So it's called, I put it in LinkedIn, it's called Supporting Students' Motivation Strategies for Success. It's by 4 authors, John Marshall Reeve, Richard M. Ryan. He apparently, I didn't realize this, is the most cited psychologist in the world. I didn't know that. And then Sung Hyun Chun, Lenia Matos, and Haya Kaplan. And just as a point of interest, when I was studying for looking into positive psychology with my master's degree and assessment last year, I was trying to be really brave and, I don't know, do big things. And so I reached out to Dr. Richard Ryan after listening to one of his webinars at Melbourne Uni, not a webinar, like something that was put online, one of his talks at Melbourne University. And I reached out to him. Obviously, he didn't reply himself. But yeah, anyway, long story short, I'm in a Zoom now every month with Professor Dr. Richard Ryan. Thank you so much. Thank you so much. You're awesome. So, yeah, I'm in a Zoom with him, Dr. Professor Richard Ryan, every month now. And we've done a book club on this book, and we discuss a few chapters every month. And there's about 15 of us, and 3 of the authors are in the Zoom. Lenia, John Marshall Reeve, and Dr. Richard M. Ryan. And then other people who are much more, do a lot more things in education than I do. I'm just at the small level. But yeah, it's really fun. So just really quickly, it's self-determination theory. So that I'm really interested in that. And it talks about how in order for people to thrive, and we are interested in students, and all of us, we need competence. So feeling like we can do something, we can do things well. That's why it's to do with motivation as well. So we're more motivated to do things if we feel like we're becoming more competent. So competence. The second thing we need to thrive is relatedness. And we all sort of know that that's like your belonging, relationship, all that stuff. And then the third thing we need to thrive is autonomy. And that's a really big one. And so this self-determination theory is tied, it has a link across between well-being, that's how I became interested, and intrinsic motivation. So if people are intrinsically motivated to do things, and they do things because they would like to do them, they're interested, then their well-being, there's proof that their well-being is increased. So there's a link between intrinsic motivation and well-being. So he talks a lot about in schools how young people want to feel that what they're doing matters and that it has meaning, and they want to know why it's important. So if they're doing things that they're interested in and they think are important and valued, then they're more likely to want to be involved. And if their autonomy is supported, so if they are given more choice and they are shown that their competence is growing, and of course we all know the rapport, the relatedness, if we work on that as well, then there's much more likelihood the students will be engaged rather than disengaged. And as we all know, there's a whole lot of disengagement in schools today, a lot. And so they talk a lot about, taking the students' perspective, so that we can give them activities and things to do that relate more to what they'd be interested in, and that and if so, then they're going to be intrinsically motivated. So yeah,
it's the difficulty with that one though, is it that it's very hard for us to do that with the students when so many teachers are feeling that they don't have any agency themselves.
Yeah, we've talked about that as well. So I'm in the Zoom every month with Dr. Professor Richard Ryan. We talk about this. And so we have talked about that a lot as well. So the teachers as well need to be supported to have agency and self-determination. And that is an issue, as we all know, is that when we're in the school system, so much of what we do is what we sort of have to do and not what we really would like to do, or the best scenario, what we'd love to do if we were given free rein to do what we believe works best with our students. So absolutely, there is difficulty there. And Dr. Professor Richard Ryan talks a lot about that. In the last Zoom we had, he said that very thing. He said there's a difference between like the perfect school and how I'd love it to be and the schools that we have now. So he works on just doing what he can to bring in aspects of like choice and autonomy for the students as much as we can as educators, in order to engage them more, because we all know that they're not very engaged. So a lot of them, like not all, but some.
No,
like one of my kids had school refusal, like didn't want to go to school. So yeah, but thank you for listening.
That's good.
And
Thank you for sharing.
Ryan, as in the Ryan, like Ryan and Desi, who made
Ryan and Desi.
theory.
Yeah.
Like they're it. If you've ever read any paper in psychology, it's like Ryan and Desi is
Exactly.
self-determination theory. They made it.
Yeah.
Well, we know one of their names better now. Richard. Yeah. All right. Well, we're on 9 o'clock, people. What's the play?
Thanks for sharing, Julie.
That was wonderful. Yeah.
Thank you for having me.
Mark, can I just ask a quick question on Julie's book? Does that tie into Meryl's? You referenced Meryl recently in LinkedIn around the principles of real world learning for it to be, engaging.
Probably.
Mark says sheepishly.
Yeah.
Master.
More than likely. Somewhat.
I'm going to take that question on notice, I think, for next week, next month, and then he'll come very prepared and say, I can say with certainty that.
When it's problem-centered and learners are engaged in real-world learning and it's relevant to their context.
Yeah, did you just read that out, or if it's
from I am a computer.
Well, I guess a lot of these do fold into each other. These sort of theories, and they're sort of. And I guess it's kind of. I really like the kind of switching on, tapping into what what's motivating an individual wherever they're learning, in a workplace, in a school, if they're younger learners, if, what is it? And then it's tapping into a real world kind of, I mean, sometimes someone said about the wicked problems, that sort of, and I thought, yeah, but they're just real world context,
Welcome to the world. It's all
Let's
wicked.
just
There's not many
demystify it.
easy problems floating around, is there?
But yeah, I liked the outline, Julie, that you gave us of that.
Yeah, it's brilliant.
And then I
Thank
like
you.
the dialogue that you're having with the group of people. That's ongoing even. It's really impressive.
Mm.
I'm going to investigate that book
Yeah.
and see if it aligns with Merrill's principles.
Everyone leaves with homework. Oh.
Thank you. Well, we
Can
might
you
leave
put
it
the
there.
name of the Merrill book in the chat, or the thing that you were talking about, or could you?
Yeah, I'll throw
I
it
will.
in.
Thank you.
I'll send it out with the kind of I thank you, Lottie. Thank you. Yeah, he's a legend.
A little bit.
I
Jason.
think it's David Merrill.
You tell me.
No,
Yes.
Anyway, I think we'll leave it there. I deem this to be a successful event. So thanks, everyone. We've got quite a lot of, contribution from everyone, which is really nice to see. So we'll wrap it up, and we'll see you in November.
Next month.
Next
Tell
month.
us, Stephen, what's happening in November? We have a date. We have a guest.
We're on the 5th. No, we don't have a guest. No.
Oh.
No, that one's going to remain tantalizing.
We have a guest that will be announced soon.
Yes.
Yes.
Maybe
surprise.
someone in this room. Who knows? Ooh,
Good to
who
see you,
could it be? It's a
Joanne.
very full room. No, yes, we'll do some author things, but it's very short turnaround, Lottie. You and
Well, this
Mark
was a long
gotta get
turnaround.
cracking.
I know. I got to get reading. Got to get
November
cracking.
is woof.
I know.
Better get cracking. But anyway, yes, thank you all for coming and joining us in our nerddom and book reading. It's been lovely. And I'm just most excited to see what Mark's background will be next month.
So am I.
A slippery and wet side. I can see the high chairs. Is that the best picture you get?
I did say perhaps you should remove that baby
It's
chairs.
authentic.
No, it's all context.
It offers real world perspectives.
I feel bad for the 3 people who, you're exposing just as they're sitting there.
Oh, they've been de-identified.
I guess, yeah. Just generic heads. Anyway, someone wrap me up because otherwise.
Yes, we'll leave it there. Thanks, everyone, and we'll see you next time. Thank you.
Thanks for joining.
Bye.
Bye. See you on LinkedIn.